This episode is sponsored by Amy Wangard. The Amy Wangard Group is proud to serve Northeast Ohio and all YSU alumni. Ranked 15th out of more than 10,000 realtors across 27 counties, Amy and her team deliver trusted, professional real estate advice for your most significant investment. Through exclusive programs designed to simplify buying and selling, they offer solutions you won't find anywhere else, helping clients move confidently at every step. Their goal is to maximize your value and provide a smooth, stress-free experience that turns your dreams into reality. At the Amy Wangard Group, clients become family, and every home is a new beginning. Learn more at amysguaranteed.com. Again, that's amyguaranteed.com. The link will be posted in the description. All right, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Penguin Nation Fans Podcast. As always, I am your host, Gino. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at YTown Nation, and don't forget to check out my written work over on Redshirt Sports Today. The Penguin Pulse Hotline returns, and this time we're going to be looking at the Missouri Valley Football Conference. As you guys have known, I have been posting my team season previews on Redshirt Sports, breaking down really right now at this moment the top 6 teams in the Missouri Valley Football Conference. No disrespect to the bottom 3 teams or the projected bottom 3 teams, but I really don't see a world where Indiana State and Murray State really surprise us. Northern Iowa will be an interesting team to preview, but at this point in the evaluation process, I sort of want to give you guys an insight into what I see, how I project the Missouri Valley to be next season, and where does YSU fit in that landscape, because I think it's going to be an exciting season. And I'll say it right off the bat, I think YSU is a lock to be a top 3 team in the conference. And to me, it's probably going to be a 3-horse race at the top of the conference. I think the top 6 teams are going to be okay. I think those bottom 2 teams, one of those teams are going to drop off, whether that be South Dakota or Illinois State. Illinois State, in my opinion, is getting a lot of preseason hype just based on the fact that they had that magical run to the FCS National Championship game last season. And what concerns me about Illinois State, we're just going to start there. If I had to preseason rank them now in the conference, I'd probably put them at number 5. What concerns me there is the fact that you have to replace Tommy Rittenhouse, who is the single season passing yards record, or holds that record at Illinois State. You have to replace Daniel Sopkowitz at receiver, who is an unbelievable big target. He's 6'3", signed an undrafted free agent contract with the Houston Texans. And then you have to replace your starting left tackle in Jake Pope. That's going to be a tough trio to replace. And they certainly have the offensive line production coming back where they can establish a good running game with Victor Dawson, who was unbelievable last season in that magical postseason run. But what concerns me is the fact that you're breaking in a new quarterback, and quarterback is such an important position. If you watch Illinois State on film, if you're the starting quarterback there, you have to make a significant amount of reads. You have to be able to read RPO plays and execute at a high level. And Tommy Rittenhouse, I just have a hard time believing that Beckham Pellant or Gage Roy, whichever of the two end up starting, are going to be able to execute at as high as a level. On top of that, they lose a lot of production on the defensive front for Illinois State, but their linebacking corps is loaded. They have some key pieces back in the secondary, highlighted by safety LaShavian Brown. So defensively, I know a lot has been made out of the defensive line losses, but honestly, if you go back and watch the regular season last season, for Illinois State, the defensive line really did not play great up until the playoffs. That North Dakota State game in the playoffs was unbelievable in terms of defensive line penetration and executing at a high level, but I'm not going to pretend like it's impossible to replace what they lost on the defensive front heading into next season. Jake Anderson is going to be a massive loss for the Redbirds, but in their 3-4 scheme and with a lot of production back, headlined by Ty Niekamp, the fantastic middle linebacker for Illinois State, I think that could be a very exciting defensive unit. But again, what pushes them back is that I think In next year's Missouri Valley, you need a quarterback that can execute at a high level, and I'm not sure Beckham Pellant or Gage Roy will be able to do so. They have weapons. They have Dylan Lord and Luke Maylander back, but I just think there's going to be teams and there's going to be games where you're going to play a team in this conference where you need some high-level quarterback play, and I'm not sure Illinois State is going to have good enough quarterback play like some of the other teams that we're projecting to be good in the conference. The other teams I want to talk about, let's hop up into the top three right now. I mentioned a bit how it was sort of feels like a three-man race to the Missouri Valley Football Conference title at this point in the offseason. Again, it's May. It's still very early, but I just think South Dakota State, first of all, is the clear-cut favorite. They returned a significant amount of experience on both sides of the ball. An experienced offensive line. Chase Mason is a pro-type quarterback. If he has a good season next year, it would not surprise me at 6'4", 240 pounds to see Chase Mason get drafted in next year's draft. I think they have some explosiveness coming in at running back with Raymond McKinney Jr. That was an area that South Dakota State really struggled with last season, was establishing the running game and then at times with pass protection. But with Chase Mason playing, it was a completely different offense. When Chase Mason went down with that foot injury against Murray State, the season completely flipped for South Dakota State. Mason is just a difference maker, and with the top three receiving options back for South Dakota State, the top two tight end options back, I think that's going to be a tough offense to stop in Brookings, South Dakota. And then defensively, a lot of production comes back on that front seven. They have a new look secondary, but the front seven has a ton of production coming back, and I think that can make South Dakota State very dangerous. And again, the things that I value the most when doing these evaluations, I think quarterback is obviously important. I think having experience in the trenches is another thing that often goes overlooked. It's cool if you bring in transfers, but if those transfers do not hit in the trenches, that could be a really bad thing for a team. Youngstown State is the team that I would preseason rank at number 2. I just think the Penguins, you guys have heard on this podcast, have a ton of experience coming back. Bo Brungard, the best quarterback in the FCS, returns. Jaden Gilbert, explosive tailback, a ton of experience back on that offensive line. Wide receiver is going to be interesting. You got to replace your top option in Max Tomczak, Flash Wilson, that explosive playmaker and deep threat that YSU valued a lot last season. But I think the Penguins did a fantastic job of backfilling in the portal. I think we have the potential to have better deep threats next season and guys that can go up and get contested catches. Dorian Williams, transfer from Ohio State, has a ton of upside for YSU. Lorenzo Jenkins, Jeremiah Sanders, those are some guys that I think could really step up for the Penguins next season. Tight end also, top 2 tight end options are back for YSU. I think it's going to be an electric offense for YSU. It's going to be interesting to see if they can maintain what they did statistically last season. But I certainly think with Bo Brungard and the difference maker that he is, the Penguins have a top 3 team in the conference. And then defensively, I have loved everything about the Ryan Remedial hire up to this point in the offseason. I think the 3-4 scheme that he is bringing in complements his best player in Mike Wells, and that's something that is very important. I think Ryan Remedial is going to do a much better job of making adjustments on the fly. And YSU, that defensive front is underrated in this conference. There's a ton of production and a ton of depth coming back, and I think we could have a very deep rotation in the 3-4 scheme that Ryan Remedial is going to have. The big question is going to be the secondary. How much can the secondary improve from last season? The secondary held us back a lot defensively last fall. Can that improve for the Penguins? That's going to be the big question. I would expect with a defensive coordinator that has an extensive coaching resume and has proven success scheming up a pass defense, I would honestly be surprised if we don't see some significant improvements in that department. And if YSU's defense improves to around 24 points per game, I think this is a YSU team that has an offense that could beat absolutely anybody in the country. And then the third team, and this is the team that I am currently working on previewing is North Dakota. And for the reason I have them in the top 3 in the conference is simple for me. And I talked about this, and this is something that people I think should really value when evaluating teams in the preseason. North Dakota has a tremendous amount of production in the trenches coming back. The offensive line and the defensive line for the Fighting Hawks has so much experience. And North Dakota last season had just a super talented defense, one of the better defenses in the country, and they returned a lot of experience back. They brought in some transfer additions that I'm excited to see how they mix together. They bring back probably the top edge rusher duo, if not one of the better edge rusher duos in the conference, in Lance Rucker and Caden Vig. Super exciting team. The big question for them is, can Jerry Kaminsky take that next step? He struggled to limit turnovers last season and also had a completion percentage that was not great, but you're going to struggle as a first-year starter under a new coach. I think Kaminsky is going to get more comfortable. I think they have the talent to replace some of the guys they lost at receiver. Deng Deng is a huge target at 6'4" on the perimeter. Can't wait to see what he does. I think they have some bruisers at the running back position, and then just an absolutely loaded tight end position group. To me, again, these 3, South Dakota State, Youngstown State, and North Dakota, are going to be tough to stop. I'm really excited to get into these schedules and see how they lay out. The 4th team is Southern Illinois for me. Southern Illinois is going to be interesting. They bring back DJ Williams. We all know what DJ Williams can do, an electric player. Their top 2 running back options are back. Their offensive line has a lot of guys that weren't necessarily starters last season, but got some starting reps, which is super important. They brought in some transfers on that offensive line that I think could make an impact. And then receiver, I thought they nailed some of the portal additions that they brought in there, giving DJ Williams some more targets to throw to. The big question for them is defense, and what separates them from the top 3 teams and then Southern Illinois is the fact that they have some question marks on defense, but honestly, some of the defensive lineman transfers they brought in through the portal, I think, are going to help tremendously. That was a unit last season that got pushed around, I thought, on a consistent basis. At least when they played YSU, they got pushed around. I know it was a struggle. You look at those rushing statistics that they allowed per game. It was not good. I think Shamun Johnson, the transfer they brought in from New Albany at edge rusher, I think they just did a nice job of attacking the portal and trying to bring in some players on the defensive front. And I said this again, there's no way that defensive line can get worse after what they did last season. In a 4-3 scheme, Southern Illinois has some experience back at linebacker, which is important and is something they should value. And a couple of key contributors come back in the secondary. But again, the thing that really separates them for maybe YSU and North Dakota are the defensive question marks up front. For YSU, we had plenty of question marks on defense last season, but I felt like the front 7 for the Penguins really stood out last season, and it returns a ton of experience and contributors back. Southern Illinois, on the other hand, sort of got pushed around in a conference that really emphasizes physicality. And then South Dakota, I'll still have to get more into South Dakota. I know they have to replace Aiden Bauman, who was just phenomenal. I believe he was the starter there for around 3.5 seasons. Charles Pierre Jr., it's going to be super interesting to see how he is after suffering that season-ending injury last season for the Coyotes. The offensive line, what concerns me about them is the fact that this is the second straight offseason where a significant amount of experience on the offensive line is gone. And I think with a new starting quarterback, some new weapons at receiver, it's gonna be important that offensive line is good and gels quickly. And we sort of saw this last offseason when South Dakota got hit in the portal and lost a ton of production. It sort of took that team time to adjust to their transfers and adjust to the guys coming in and building that chemistry. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Penguin Nation Fans Podcast. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure to leave the show a 5-star review and continue to support the podcast on social media. For now, I'm Gino Leone, and as always, go Gwins.